Yesterday, Saraji explained that by being mindful of the resultant, one will not be generating the causes, and thus the vata dukkha, the suffering, the rounds, will be cut. And Saraji also explained about samsara and vata. In the word samsara, sa means arising continuously, sam means continuous, increasing, and sara means going. The continuous arising is the samsara. So in the six-sense door, there are the receptor element, and on the receptor element, the striker element strikes the receptor, and consciousness, contact, and feeling takes place as the ignition. So these elements, receptor element, striker element, and the ignition element, they are rising continuously, just like a stream of current. In Pali, it is called samsara. There are 18 kinds of dhatu, 18 kinds of elements. And there are the receptor element, striker element, and the ignition element. And there are the ayatana, the basis. The continuous arising of the nama rupa is called the samsara. And these nama rupa are arising continuously as cause and effect. The continuous arising of the cause and effect are called vata. And there are different kinds of causes. The origin cause, the producing cause, as well as the supporting cause. But Saraji will not explain, as it can be complex. The continuous arising in rotation of these cause and effect are called vata. So in samsara, samsara is the continuous arising of the nama rupa like a stream of current. And vata are the rounds where the cause and effect are arising in rotation, in rounds. And today, Saraji will explain how the vata, the rounds, rotate, and how the vata, the rounds, will come to a stop from both theoretical and practical aspects. There are 3 rounds that are rotating. Kilesa vata, the round of defilements, Kama vata, the round of deeds, and Vipaka vata, the round of resultants. The first one is Kilesa vata, the round of defilements, where the defilements are arising continuously in rounds, rotating. And kilesa are the defilements that torment the mind. Kilesa defilements make the mind suffer and burning. When the defilements arise, there will not be peace, but there will be suffering. And if there are extreme delusion, there will be suffering. And both the mind and the body becomes weak with the defilements. and the person indulges in lobha, having greed, the person indulges in anger, aversion, hatred, and thus the mind becomes exhausted, the mind suffers, and the mind gets burnt with the defilements. When the defilements, lobha, dosa, moha, greed, anger, and delusion enter the mind becomes polluted. It will not be pure, it will not be clean anymore. In this way, the defilements make the mind dirty, polluted, and these defilements pollute the mind. So just as when a white cloth becomes dirty with dust and dirt, then the cloth will no longer be white. The quality of white will disappear and the cloth become dirty. So these defilements are the things that should be removed, and one should not be indulging in these defilements. One should be replacing greed with non-greed, and one should replace dosa, anger, with metta, loving kindness, and karuna, compassion. And one should replace moha, delusion, with knowledge. The continuous arising of the nama rupa are called samsara, and the defilements are arising in rotation, and it is called kilesa vata. And Buddha explained so that one can understand easily. There are three main defilements: avijja, tasna, and upadana. Avijja is ignorance. Avijja is the opposite of knowledge. Not knowing, knowing wrongly, not knowing correctly, and thus it is the opposite of knowledge. When the eyes have cataract, the person does not see at all, or if the person sees, the person will see very dim and vague because of the cataract in the eyes. The cataract is compared to moha, delusion. Having delusion cataract, the person does not discern the truth, and the person does not know correctly. The person knows wrongly, the person does not know correctly due to moha, delusion, cataract. What Buddha taught is that everything is suffering, but due to the avijja, ignorance, the person does not know suffering as suffering, but instead the person knows just the opposite. The person takes suffering as good and pleasant. The person thinks that seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, knowing is pleasant. In this way, one takes just the opposite of the truth. Rather than knowing it as suffering, one knows just the opposite, thinking as good and pleasant. Avijja is the ignorance, not knowing the truth, knowing wrongly. Buddha taught that things are suffering. The person who lacks satipatthana practice will see opposite. One will think suffering as good and pleasant. Not discerning correctly, there will be attachment and craving. And knowing correctly, discerning, one removes the attachment and craving. In order to remove craving, one should be mindful of the objects at the moment the object arises. One should be mindful of the nama rupa at the moment the nama rupa arises. If the person is not mindful, or if he or she observes it, but observing in a flippant way, in an easygoing manner, then the person will not discern suffering as suffering, and thus the person thinks that seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching is good and pleasant. So the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching is generating the defilement as the person is not being mindful. So the person is hungry for pleasant objects. The person seeks pleasant objects, and when the person gets these objects, they will cling onto it, they will grab onto it without wanting to let it go. The example is given here. A snake will pursue the frog in order to eat, and when the snake gets the frog, the snake will hold on to it, grab it, not willing to let the frog go. This example is compared to clinging. The person craves for pleasant objects, and when one gets pleasant object, the person is not willing to let it go, but the person cling onto it with craving. So in this way, tasna, craving, increases in degree. The person clings with craving, not wanting to give up. And there will be balava tasna, there will be strong craving, and it will be upadana, there will be clinging with craving. And there is also wrong view that it is I, person, being, I am seeing, I am hearing, and so on. In this way, there is clinging with wrong view of person, being. And one believes that there is a living soul in each person and being. And one believes that it is the jiva atta, individual soul, that is seeing, that is hearing. In this way, there is wrong view. So one knows wrongly, there is wrong view, and it is ditthi. Among the ditthi, sakaya ditthi is the main. So among the defilements, avijja, ignorance, tasna, craving, and upadana, clinging, are the main defilements. The continuous arising of the cause and effect in rounds is called vata. The avijja, tasna, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging, are the kilesa vata, the round of defilements. What is really arising are the dukkha satya, the truth of suffering, which are the nama rupa that are arising. And if the person is not mindful in the way of satipatthana practice, there will be avijja, ignorance, and one will take things as good and pleasant where these are suffering. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, they are dukkha satya, the truth of suffering. But not being mindful, lacking satipatthana practice, one thinks that seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching is good and pleasant, and there will be wrong view. And one also believes that there is the atta, individual soul, and apart from sleeping hours, the defilements are arising continuously. Only at the time of sleep, the defilements do not arise, but from the time one wakes up, the defilements are arising continuously. The nama-rupa are the sankhara dukkha, and not noting the object with aim and effort, there will be lack of mindfulness. Lacking mindfulness, the mind slips away, and one does not discern anything, and one does not discern suffering as suffering. Not discern the suffering, one think it just the opposite. One think the suffering as good and pleasant, and if they are good objects, one wants better and better ones, one craves for better ones. If one encounters bad objects, one craves for the good ones. And if there is calm feeling, one wants more calmness. In the Vipassana practice, when one gets to the higher knowledges, there is calm, good feeling, and one craves onto this calm, good feeling, and not being mindful, the person does not discern correctly. So based on good feeling, bad feeling, neutral feeling, craving arises based on these good feeling, bad feeling, and neutral feeling. If there is good feeling, the person craves for better feeling. If there is bad feeling, the person craves for the good one. And if there is calmness, the person craves for more calmness. In this way, feeling leads to craving. And not discerning, one will be attached and one will be craving, and one know wrongly, knowing just the opposite of the truth. So based on avijja, ignorance, tasna, craving arises, and it leads to upadana, clinging. Not observing, one will not discern suffering as suffering, and one will have wrong view that there is a person, being, and also there will be sanya, conception, and one believes that the atta is doing the seeing, hearing, and there will be the wrong perception that there is a person, being, and in order not to let these arise, one should be mindful at the moment the object arises. So in this way, one should be mindful of the nama-rupa that are dukkha sajja at the moment of arising, so that knowledge will gain the upper hand and one will remove the wrong view. Having the wrong view of I, the person do things in order to make I good or comfortable. So one do things in order to make oneself good, to prosper. So one does not differentiate whether it is wholesome or unwholesome, whether it is clean or unclean, but one commits wrongdoings, such as killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, senseless talk, taking other people's belongings by force, wanting to kill, torment others, wanting to destroy others, having wrong view that good deeds do not bring good results, bad deeds do not bring bad results. So such kind of misconduct are overwhelming the person. Such deeds are called Kammavada, the round of deeds. Having done these deeds, they don't stop there, but these deeds have the potency to give results. And these results are Vipakavada, the round of resultants. So based on one's bad deeds, there will be bad consequences as the resultant, and there will be round of resultant being generated by bad deeds. And if the person has good intention, if the person has metta, loving kindness, and karuna, compassion towards others, the person does wholesome deeds such as dana, giving things, supporting things, and sila, practicing morality. But if the person performs such kind of wholesomeness, dana or sila, in order to make oneself to get good things or in order to make oneself good, then such kind of wholesomeness will lead to further assistances. Such kind of wholesomeness, such kind of wholesome deeds, having expectation for gain, this Kammavada round of ordinary wholesome deed will lead to further assistance, such as human life, deva life, and there will be Vipakavada round of resultants, and there will be a rotation of Kilesavada round of defilements, Kammavada round of deeds, Vipakavada round of resultants. So based on avijja, taဏှာ, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging, the three rounds keep on rotating. And these rotations are called vata, the rounds. So based on the defilements, the person performs bad deeds and the ordinary wholesome deeds that lead to further assistances, and thus the Kammavada round of deeds generate Vipakavada round of resultants. Good deeds bring good results, bad deeds bring bad results, but these ordinary form of good deeds and the unwholesome deeds lead to further assistances, and thus Vipakavada round of resultant follows. Most of the people do not know that they should refrain from wrongdoings, and they do not know that they should perform wholesome things. In this way, they fail to refrain from things that should be refrained from, and they fail to perform things that should be performed. And such kind of person is called pamatta, negligent person, as the person has negligence, failure, heedlessness. So the person is being negligent, failing to refrain from things that should be refrained. The person is negligent, failing to perform wholesome deeds that should be performed. But the person is negligent, heedless, and flippant. one should have the determination to keep the mind pure and wholesome. So if the person is not determined, his or her mind will not be pure and clean. And the person should redirect one's mind onto the wholesome things. So that should be niyamita. One should have firm determination. One should have definite determination to keep one's mind pure and wholesome. And that should be viparinama. One should viprinamita. One should redirect one's mind onto the wholesome things. So one should keep noting the object with aim and effort in the way of Satipatthana practice, so that Sati, Samadhi and Panya, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom will be cultivated, and there will be Paṇḍitā. Sati, Samadhi and Panya will arise continuously, one after another. Mindfulness will be continuous, and there will be Paṇḍitā. And also, in order to have the wholesome mind, in order to keep oneself wholesome, one should have the four wheel of conjuncture. One should be in the appropriate place where one can perform various kinds of wholesome deeds. One should be in the place where one can perform these wholesome deeds, having the true companion who can guide the way, who can guide the person to do wholesome deeds. And knowing the correct method, one has to reform or shape oneself. That should be atta samapanidhi. One should reform or shape oneself. Having these conditions of being in a suitable place, having the chance to meet good companion who can guide, and atta samapanidhi, being able to reform oneself, it is said that there is Pope Kata Punyata, having done good deeds in the past that lead the person to have these good conditions. And being in a good place, having the chance to meet good companion, one gains the benefit of being able to perform wholesome deeds, having wise attention, being able to perform wholesome deeds. So that should be niyamita. One should have definite determination that one's mind should be wholesome. And also there should be viprinamita. One should direct one's mind onto wholesomeness. One should incline one's mind onto the wholesomeness by being mindful. And Paṇḍitā, one's mindfulness should be continuous, so that there will be bhavana citta, developed mind continuously, one after another. And having endowed with the four wheel of conjuncture, one will have good attention, wise attention, even though one comes across desirable objects that can incite greed, but greed does not arise. Even though one comes across the anger inciting objects, but anger does not arise, and the person cultivates wholesomeness, even though the person encounters desirable and undesirable conditions. So, practicing Satipatthana meditation in a meditation center there should only be wholesomeness. And if unwholesomeness arises, if the defilement arises, one should note it right away, so that the mind will be wholesome, there will be mindfulness, continuous, and unwholesomeness will not have any chance to arise, and wholesomeness will keep on increasing. Ordinary person does not know distinctly between what is clean and not clean, what is cultured or not cultured, what is cultured or what is rude. The person might understand in the worldly sense what is rude, what is cultured, but not spiritually. Ordinary person does not know what is the cultured mind, what is the rude mind, so the person cannot differentiate between what is a tamed mind, tamed cultured mind, what is a rude mind. If the person does not have the chance to stay in the place where there are good companions to guide him or her the way, then the person will not know the correct way to keep oneself cultured, and the person will be lacking atta-samapanniti. The person will be lacking the reforming oneself. The person who has not done good deeds in the past will not get good conditions in this life. Among the sampatti, there is patirupa desavasa, being in a suitable, appropriate place. So if the person does not have been in the appropriate place, there will not be sappurisupa nisaya. The person will not have the chance to meet with good companion that can guide him or her the way, and thus the person will also lose atta-samapanniti, reforming one's life in order to shape one's life to be beautiful and clean. Based on kilesa vata, round of defilements, there will be kama vata, round of deeds. Based on the defilements, the person does unwholesome deeds, and if the person does wholesome deeds, they will do just ordinary form of wholesome deeds. Just like there can be some lightning in the darkness, in the same way, ordinary form of wholesomeness lead to further assistances. As these ordinary wholesomeness are very weak, such as jhana, they lead to further assistance, and thus the vata, the rounds, will not be cut. Not removing the defilements, kama vata, the round of deeds, will not be cut, and thus vipaka vata, the round of resultants, will follow, and thus the 3 rounds will keep on rotating so long as one does not remove the defilements. And tomorrow, Sayadaw will explain what important defilement should be removed in order to cut the round of defilements. And that shall be all for today.